Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly fascinating retirement math by looking at two identical workers who make just one divergent financial choice. And honestly, it's a choice that completely alters their retirement. We're going to see firsthand how it isn't always about exactly how much you save, but where you park those savings that really determines your ultimate financial freedom.
Okay, let's meet Peter and Chris. On paper, they look like the exact same guy, but their financial habits couldn't be more different. Peter does what, well, pretty much almost everyone does. He looks at retirement, sees his 401k, and just funnels his savings right there. He treats his health savings account, his HSA, like a little medical checking account. Money goes in, money comes out to pay the doctor in the same year. Chris, on the other hand, does something that probably sounds totally backwards to traditional advice. He gets his 401k match, sure, but then he redirects his next dollars into his HSA until it is entirely maxed out. And here is the real kicker. He invests that money for the future instead of spending it today.
Now, just to make sure this is a totally fair fight, we've set their financial baselines to be completely identical, down to the decimal point. Both guys are 30 years old. They both pull in $80,000 a year. They have the same employer, the same access to a high-deductible health plan, and they earn the exact same 7% market return on their investments over a 40-year career. Literally, everything is the same, meaning any difference in their final wealth comes entirely from the mechanics of the specific accounts they're using.
So here's the massive question mark at the end of their careers. For the first decade or so, Peter looks like the highly responsible traditional saver, right? While Chris just looks like he's overcomplicating his life for no reason. But by the time they both retire, Chris ends up with tens of thousands of dollars more in actual spendable cash. And he didn't pick that or stocks, he didn't try to time the market, and he definitely didn't just get lucky. We have to figure out how Chris pulls ahead so drastically.
Well, the secret is the triple tax advantage. Most retirement accounts out there give you two tax breaks at the absolute most. A traditional 401k that lets you deduct money going in, but it slaps you with taxes on the way out. A Roth taxes you going in, but it's tax-free coming out. Basically, you get to front door or the back door. But the HSA is essentially a unicorn. It's the only account in the entire American tax code offering a triple tax advantage. Money goes in tax-free, grows tax-free, and as long as you use it for qualified medical expenses, it comes out totally tax-free. It literally gives you the front door, the back door, and the hallway in between.
You're probably wondering, okay, if this is so incredible, why isn't everyone just slamming every spare dollar into it? Well, people massively underestimate the HSA, usually for three main reasons. First up, the contribution limits feel kind of small. For a family in 2025, it's $8,500. That feels tiny compared to a 401k. Second, people are genuinely afraid of carrying a high-deductible health plan. And third, and this is the biggest trap of all, people leave the money sitting in cash, earning basically 0%, treating it like a piggy bank instead of the investment engine it's meant to be. Let's look at the scoreboard and run the actual numbers on this. If we give both Peter and Chris that same $8,500 a year to save above their employer match, and we assume a standard 7% return, they both hit roughly $1.2 million after 35 years. Because, look, the math of compounding doesn't care which account it's sitting in. So at first glance, their ending balances of $1.2 million look exactly the same.
But here is where the whole illusion shatters. Peter's balance has a massive tax claw grabbing at it. Every single dollar he pulls out of that traditional 401k in retirement gets taxed as ordinary income. So if he's in just a 15 to 22% bracket, a couple $100,000 of his balance quietly belongs to the government. Chris, on the other hand, pays exactly zero taxes when he withdraws from his HSA for medical expenses. Not a reduced rate, literally zero.
Now I hear you. You're probably thinking, I'm not going to have $1 million in medical expenses in retirement, so this is totally useless to me. Actually, Fidelity has estimated for years that an average 65-year-old couple retiring today will spend roughly $300,000 on healthcare over the rest of their lives. And that includes things like Medicare premiums, which you can pay for directly from an HSA. Even for a super healthy guy like Chris, the idea that he won't have massive expenses to soak up that tax-free money, it just isn't true for most folks.
But what turns this from just a good account into an insanely powerful one is this one weird tax rule. Are you ready for this? There is absolutely no deadline to reimburse yourself. As long as the medical expense happened after you opened the HSA and you haven't claimed it anywhere else, the IRS lets you pull that money out tax-free at literally any point in the future. We're talking decades later if you want to.
Let's see how this builds into an absolute powerhouse of a strategy. Chris uses a simple 4-step process to treat his current medical bills not as immediate withdrawals, but as future tax-free withdrawal tokens. Basically, he pays his current dentist bill out of his normal everyday checking account. Then he saves the receipt in a folder. He lets his HSA money just keep compounding in the stock market. And finally, 25 years later, he cashes it out completely tax-free.
He's not pulling out money for today's expenses. He's cashing in a lifetime of saved receipts after those underlying dollars have quietly grown tenfold. Every single medical receipt you save becomes like a tiny tax-free lottery ticket. You could have just $200,000 of lifetime medical expenses, but use those saved receipts to pull hundreds of thousands of dollars out completely tax-free in retirement. I mean, the idea of hoarding 25-year-old dentist receipts sounds absolutely nuts until you see the math.
Okay, let's take a step back and be totally objective for a second, because we have to look at the real-world risks here. To even have an HSA, you have to be on a high-deductible health plan. If you have chronic conditions or a family that needs a lot of frequent care or super expensive ongoing prescriptions, that high deductible could easily cost you way more in out-of-pocket spending than you'd ever save in taxes. The triple tax advantage is completely worthless if the underlying health plan bankrupts you during a bad medical year.
And look, Peter isn't completely wrong about the 401k's Franks. First and foremost, you should absolutely never skip an employer match just to fund an HSA. An employer match is an instant, guaranteed return on day one. Plus, 401k contribution limits are way higher, letting you stash away up to $23,500. And of course, traditional health plans offer much safer coverage if you're chronically ill. The HSA is really a conditional strategy, and the main condition is that a high-deductible plan actually makes sense for your specific life.
So if a high-deductible plan does fit your life and your health is pretty stable, what's the game plan? Well, mathematically speaking, this is the optimal sequence for your retirement dollars. Priority 1. Fund your 401k right up to the full employer match, because hey, nothing beats free money. Priority 2. Max out your HSA and make sure you invest it, because that triple tax advantage beats absolutely everything else on pure tax efficiency. Priority 3. Take whatever cash you have left and finish maxing out your 401k or IRA.
But listen, execution is literally everything here. Most people open an HSA and just leave the balance sitting in a cash account. Let's put a real painful number on getting this wrong. If you contribute the family max every single year, but leave it in cash instead of investing it at a 7% return over 35 years, it will cost you well over $800,000 in lost compounding. $800,000. That is the staggering difference between Chris's wealth and a massive missed opportunity.
If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, remember this. You must push the Invest button inside your HSA. The triple tax advantage is the flashy headline, sure, but compounding is still the engine running the whole show. An uninvested HSA basically has the compounding engine switched completely off. It just becomes a mildly tax-advantaged checking account instead of the stealth retirement weapon it's supposed to be.
And hey, what about the absolute worst-case scenario? What if you never save a single medical receipt, you stay super healthy, and you just eventually need the cash for something else? Well, before age 65, you're going to face a harsh 20% penalty plus income tax for non-medical withdrawals. But look at what happens the second you hit 65. That 20% penalty completely disappears. Once you're 65, you can pull HSA money out for literally any reason, and it's just taxed as ordinary income, exactly like Peter's traditional 401k. The absolute worst-case scenario is that it just acts like a standard retirement account anyway.
Ultimately, the math absolutely favors the quiet path of compounding. It proves that maxing out the HSA correctly almost never loses to ignoring it, as long as the health plan is actually a good fit for you in the first place. So, this leaves us with one really vital, provocative question about your own financial habits moving forward. Are you going to be the Peter who's been swiping the debit card and missing out on hundreds of thousands in growth? Or are you ready to be the Chris who treats medical receipts like tiny tax-free lottery tickets? Think about it, because that choice could change the entire landscape of your retirement.